In this video, I am going to be sharing with you how you can find fulfillment and motivation in your PhD or in your job every single day. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ciara and I talk about all things PhD related, being productive and staying motivated during your PhD. So if you like that kind of content, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you never miss a video. Really quickly before we get into the video, our comment shout out from last week is from Ali Fiaz, who says, a very productive work week, but wondering how do you keep the energy following the week routine without any physical or social interaction with friends and family. I think this was just a great comment to see because it was a question, and I think it is something that's really important. I am doing a video soon about staying physically and mentally healthy during a PhD, which I do think that sort of social interaction is really important as part of that. Sometimes I will have really productive weeks where I do go through longer periods without getting to be more social with friends and family, but I do try to incorporate it as much as possible, but typically in the sort of evenings and weekends and not during the workday. If you would like to be shouted out in the next video, be sure to leave a comment below. Okay, so getting into this video. I think this is something, if you haven't totally nailed down your PhD topic yet, I would highly recommend watching this video before choosing your PhD topic, as this will be sort of a guideline of what types of PhD topics will get you the most fulfillment. How can you stay motivated and really feel a strong sense of fulfillment from your PhD on a daily basis? I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with at some point during the time because PhDs are long. It's 3 or 4 or maybe 5 or 6 years depending on where you live or what kind of course you're in. But I do think it can be really hard to stay motivated for a long period. So essentially, we're going to be talking about staying motivated through finding your purpose in life, which sounds very crazy and difficult, but there is somewhat of an easy process for finding this. This is using the Japanese term Ikigai, which essentially means life's purpose or finding your purpose in life. It's from an area of Japan called Okinawa, which has the largest population in the world of people over the age of 100, so people who just want to live and keep living for a long period. And part of that is thought that it's to do with the fact that there's a high level of people there who have a good sense of what their purpose in life is. We are going to be trying to figure out what that is for you today. I do have a walkthrough of how you can do this in Notion if you're looking for somewhere keeping track of your Ikigai. Do stick around for later on in the video. I'll be going through that, which will be available as part of the PhD on Productivity Notion template, which can be purchased in the link down below. Ikigai is essentially a pretty simple formula for finding the purpose of your life, and it's essentially trying to find the intersection between the things that you love doing, the things that you're skilled at, the things that the world needs or that your community needs or the people around you need, and things that can earn you money. So those are the 4 things you need. If you are doing something that meets all 4 of those things, then you should have a really good sense of fulfillment and you will be sort of working within your purpose in life and hopefully getting a really strong sense of fulfillment from that. So let's break down each of these. Just to say, if you are worried about not having one of these things, do stick around because I'll be going through what to do if you don't have one of these things and how to sort of maybe adjust that or fix that, and what to do if you don't have one of these things and can't fix it. How can you have a sense of fulfillment without it? First of all, finding something that you love. That is one of the ways that people often tell you to try and find when you're trying to decide what to do in university or for your job, that people say do something you love. And I definitely do think it is important for sure. And I do think for PhD topics, it can often be overlooked that people don't necessarily find something they're totally in love with. I think a lot of the time people do a PhD not because they love research or learning, but because they think it will lead to a good job afterwards. So I think if you're doing something that you don't love, you won't necessarily feel a strong sense of motivation and a long-term fulfillment of it. Whether it's loving the actual process and the work involved, or loving the topic itself, or being extremely interested in the topic itself, I think it is important to have something like that in order to keep your motivation high. Finding something that you love as part of your PhD work, whether it's big or small, I think you're not going to love every aspect of doing a PhD. There's definitely parts of doing a PhD I do not love at all, but there's so many parts that I do love, such as the problem solving element, the learning element, and the sort of overall improvement element. I do love all of those things, but there'll be other things I don't like, such as anything administrative, essentially. Definitely don't love that. So it is important to find some part of your PhD that you do love and try to incorporate that into your daily life. So if you love academic writing, try to write every day. If you love programming, try to program every day, depending on what type of field you're in. If there is a specific type of work that you do love, try and do that every day, even if it's only for a small portion of the day, just so that you can still have that feeling and get that part of the work that you love every single day. The next thing is that you need to be skilled at whatever it is. During the application stage of your PhD, you will probably have filled out something which explains exactly why you are the most skilled person for this particular PhD and why you'll be the perfect person for this job. Usually you'll have to do that as part of your application. I definitely did have to sort of talk about my skills and explain why I think I'd be a good fit. And sometimes we can get a bit disconnected from this as time goes on. So it's important to just be reminding yourself about your skills and why you are the right person for this. There definitely will be times where doing a PhD you will feel very, very unskilled. It's important to still be connected to the skills that you do have and to try to just not let that get you down. There might be certain parts of your PhD that you really aren't skilled at, and that's okay. But there'll be other parts that you are really skilled at. So again, it's trying to focus on your skills, but not completely disregard the things that you aren't skilled at. The good thing about this element is that if it's something that you're lacking skills in, that's something you can always improve. There's so many different courses available that you can just continue to build up those skills. And it's not the end of the world if you are lacking skills in a certain area of your PhD. The next thing that's required for Ikigai is a need. So having some need for your PhD research or your job, whatever it is, having the world needing this work to be done is going to be hugely important for getting a sense of fulfillment. This, alongside having some earning, is really what separates our Ikigai or our purpose in life from just pure passions. I have seen something before which explains how having passion alone is not enough to feel long-term motivation for your job. Having a sense of purpose is. So these will be the two things coming up now that will really allow you to have that full rounded sense of purpose in order to have that long-term motivation and not just be feeling a short living passion for your work. It's unlikely when you're doing a PhD you'll be allowed into any program with a topic that is not needed. So it means that there is some need for your work, but how connected you are to that need will vary. So you could be doing something that is very much needed, but you don't really care that much about that. And I think in that way, it's important to try to get connected to that, try to really look into the area of where your PhD research will be most beneficial and how it can benefit people in a way that you actually do really connect with and care for, and try to have some way to continuously show yourself that and have that be something that drives you to continue. Even if it's not impacting millions and billions of people, if it's impacting a small community that you care really deeply about, that is going to be something that really helps you to feel very fulfilled by your work. Lastly, earnings. So I'm sure there are a lot of you who are super noble and don't care about money and will just be happy to do fulfilling work without a super high income, and that's great, but it's a long time to be on a lower income. And if you are doing a PhD in a way that is going to make you in debt by the end of the PhD or even a couple of years into it, it's unlikely that that sense of fulfillment is going to last long. It's important that before you start a PhD, you do consider this, whether it is possible to do a PhD and whether you can afford to do so. We've talked about those 4 things, and just to say that in terms of the interactions, there's a really good diagram that I'll include If you have something that you love and something you're good at, but it's not something the world needs and not something you can be paid for, then you have a passion. So there might be certain elements of your PhD that you are passionate about. If we have something that you are good at and paid for, but you don't love or is needed in the world, that's what's called a profession. And I think a lot of people may feel this way about their work, and so sort of have a lack of fulfillment from not having something you love and not having something that the world needs. We will be talking about what we can do in those situations in a little bit. If you have something that you can be paid for and that the world needs, but you don't really love it and you're not really good at it, then you have a vocation. So obviously you'd want to be improving your skills and trying to find a way to appreciate it more and maybe connect to it more in a way that you can really fall in love with it. But overall, it can be difficult to turn a vocation into full Ikigai. And then lastly, if you have something that the world needs and that you love, but you can't be paid for it and you're not that good at it, then we have what's called a mission. If you get better at it, hopefully that would lead to being paid for it, which would mean you could get to Ikigai. Let's talk about what will happen if you are missing one of these things in your PhD. So let's say your PhD topic is not something you love. That is quite difficult to overcome because you can't just make yourself love your topic. However, I think there might be parts of your PhD that you do really enjoy, and it's important to focus on those as much as possible and try to incorporate those into your daily work so that you do have that feeling of fulfillment every day. So let's say your PhD topic is something that you're not skilled in. Get skilled in it. There are so many courses available nowadays. Like, online learning is such a great way to build up any skills these days. So you can find a lot of free courses on things like edx.org. You can find some cheap courses on things like Udemy. You can also do courses in your own university or audit classes. Even if you don't want to take credits, you can audit classes. So there's not really much of an excuse. If there's something that you're not good at in your PhD and want to improve it, work on it. It does take time, it takes a lot of effort, but I think it is really important to do that, as it will be important for leading to an overall sense of fulfillment and enjoyment from your work. Let's say your PhD topic is not something that's earning enough. That is a big problem because you don't want to be putting yourself into debt to do your PhD. Even if you think it will lead to some very lucrative job thereafter, it's important that you do not be putting yourself in a dangerous position for potentially 3 or 4 years. Is there another way that you can earn income as part of your PhD? Could you take up extra teaching hours? Can you work part-time? Can you earn money through your research somehow? Is there a way that you could start a social media platform that would help you to earn money? I will say this does take a while, but it can be worthwhile if you do it early on, so that by the time you're in the, let's say, rockier income area, then it can help. But overall, it is something that's important and to consider, especially if you haven't started a PhD yet, to really think about, is this something that can be sustained? Lastly, if you feel your PhD topic isn't something the world needs, I think this can happen a lot, especially in theoretical fields, particularly in computer science. I'm thinking now, if you're working on something where you're just trying to improve some metric by a small amount compared to working on some application, I think you can get lost from how your research is going to impact the world around you. And what I would recommend is to try and investigate and really find some really good examples of how your work will contribute to the world around you in some really positive way that you really care about, and try to have that somewhere that will be able to motivate you and really have you thinking about how your research will have some positive impact. I do think that's really important to consider when choosing a PhD topic or a PhD program. Does it hit all of these things for you? If not, you're going to find it difficult to maintain a sense of motivation and fulfillment throughout the course of the PhD. What if everything fails here? What if you don't have Ikigai from your PhD or in your 9-to-5 job, whatever you have, and you don't feel there's any way to change that in your 9-to-5? We've got those 8 hours gone, let's say. You've got, let's say, another 8 hours of sleep. That leaves another 8 hours of your day for Ikigai. Even if you consider 5 to 9 a.m. and 5 to 9 p.m, obviously that's quite unrealistic, but let's say you're a really early bird. You've got those 2 4-hour sections that you can spend doing things that make up for the things that you're lacking in your workday. So if you don't do something you love in your workday, do something you love in the rest of your day. If you're not doing something you're skilled at in your workday, which I feel is really unlikely, otherwise it's unlikely that you'd have that job, but let's say practice something you're skilled at in those other times. If you're not doing something that you feel the world needs during your workday, try to do something that you feel the world or your community or your immediate family need throughout the other hours of the day. And if you're not doing something that earns you enough money during your workday, you can start some sort of side hustle that you could maybe eventually want to turn into a full-time gig. If you're missing this from your 9 to 5, that's not to say that you can't have it or that you don't have it. It's just to say that it might not be something that you have as part of your job, which isn't ideal, but it means that there is still a lot of room in your day to have those feelings and have that long-term sense of fulfillment and purpose. Obviously, I think it's good to work towards having that as part of your workday, but a lot of people don't really feel the need to have that because a lot of people will just work to live rather than living to work. And I think that is totally fine. So here you can see my Ikigai template. This is coming from the motivation and goal settings. So you can see here is the Ikigai, which is newly added. I need to add in some sort of icon here. I went through some of the main points that I went through in the video. I've got this here sort of diagram so that you can take a look. And then I have down here our Ikigai table. So this is what you'll see first of all. This is somewhere that you can write down all of the different things that you do every day, either during your PhD work or doing outside work or whatever. So all the things you do, let's say in a given week, and you can fill out all of these things and then mark down the stuff that you love, whether it's something that you're skilled at, whether it's something you feel the world or your community needs, and whether it can earn you money. Also write down all of the things you would like to do, and that can sort of help you see, is there anything that you could be doing that would lead to Ikigai? When you sort of go through all these different selects, you can look at what might be your passions. You could add some pictures in here to make them a bit more interesting. So I'm quite passionate about learning about productivity, exercise, and women's issues. What are my vocations? Admin. This is something that I sort of have to do. I don't like it and I'm not very good at it, but I feel like I need to do it as part of my work. Let's say professions. This is something that I'm good at, but not really that into, but it's something that could earn me money. So if you see in the list, I have down problem solving to improve people's ability to exercise, obviously because that is something that I love and skilled at, and I feel it's something that's needed and I'd earn from it. This is something then that I would have full Ikigai in, whereas problem solving for tasks, why, let's say that's something I just don't really care about, then that's just going to be skilled and earning, but it's not going to be something I feel the world needs or something that I love doing. You'll see that there is different ways to get that sort of Ikigai, and I think this is the one that I've ended up with. So this is my actual PhD topic, which will be problem solving, and it's using recommender systems to help runners improve their sort of exercise for running and marathon running in particular. So this is something I definitely recommend doing and trying to see, can you find Ikigai in your work? If not, maybe thinking about what activities you do outside of work that can provide you Ikigai. But just so that you can get some sense of fulfillment, to try at least make sure throughout your workday you're including some part of your work that you love, some part of your work that you're very skilled at, some part of your work that you feel is really beneficial to others, and some part of your work, obviously I think as part of the PhD there will be some earnings involved, I hope, but I know that's not the case for everyone, so I'm hoping that there will be some sort of earnings for everybody in some way. That is it for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and I hope that it was helpful. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up because that really helps me out. If you've already purchased the template, if you go to your link for the template that you will have gotten through purchasing, you will find that you can just download the Ikigai one there and that you can then add that to the one that you've already downloaded. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all of my wonderful members who really do make it possible to continue making these videos. I really, really appreciate you, and I'll see you all in the next video.